Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fat Muscle Project podcast. I'm John Gorman, one of three people on the show today. We've got Lisa Franz in the house. Lisa, what's going on, ma'am? How are you?
Hi, John. I'm very well. I'm excited for this conversation, to talk to Renee again, and of course to see you as well also.
Yeah, well, thank you. We don't get to talk a lot of business, brand building, social media, a lot of that stuff on the show, but it's something that literally these days impacts everyone. Especially we have a lot of coaches listening, or we have people that may want to be a coach. Matter of fact, Renee, I had a friend of yours email me today wanting to become a coach and talk more shop about stuff like that. And I think a podcast episode is good for someone that's just getting in the door, but I think a podcast like this is good for people that are even established, that are either stuck or they don't know what to do next. So, speaking of Renee, that's welcome back to the show. Last time you were on the show, we crushed it and had a good time. So, real quick before we get into the topic today, how are you and how's everything going?
Uh, awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I'm really excited to keep the conversation going. And I've just been busy, but I wouldn't want it any other way. So,
Yeah, well, you and I just were on the M Factor watch party put on by Premier UTelemed, my clinic, and you were on the Q&A panel with myself, Dr. Greg Reeder, Jordan Kimmler, Brandon Williams, Shannon Shores, and we really had a blast. And we had around 70 people in attendance to check out the M Factor watch party. In the middle of finishing up a YouTube video that Gavin and I did with the whole Q&A, so that'll be out soon on our YouTube channel if you're watching there. But that was fun. And you have really been in the trenches lately as a coach with a hell of a growing brand there. You've got the Trio agency with marketing. We've brought you on board at New Ethics to take over all of our marketing and advertising there, which is, New Ethics is a really big brand. It's about 7 times the size of Fat Muscle, and we're not small. Like, we're doing well. And you've immediately came in and started to shift things in the right direction. So you're someone that can talk about building a brand for multiple facets. Like, you can talk about it in a way that I can't. And that's what I'm really excited for. So if you would tell people a little bit more about Trio Agency, when you started it and what it's about.
yeah, I started Trio Agency in 2011. Um, and Trio Agency is a full service marketing and advertising company. I have a very small team, but we are awesome at what we do. So we pack a lot of punch for a small team. So we do full service, which basically what that means is we do everything from the marketing strategy all the way through the execution to the analytics and beyond. So we do budgeting, we do web development, we do social media management, paid media, media negotiations, we do graphic design, creative execution. That could be like things on paper, it could be, newspaper, direct mail, could be digital advertising, it could be, gosh, marketing collateral, other types of, graphic design things, big billboards, you name it, all the way down to video production, audio production, like radio, um, for television or social media, other types of digital video assets. Um, Copywriting, all those things. So we are full service. So anything that a marketing or that a company would need in order to promote their company, we would help them with that. So that's Trio.
Yeah, and you guys are so good at what you do. You're a part of Synergy Labs manufacturing and distribution as well. You've come on board with me and you're building people's labels because you have a full graphics team. You're building websites. You're doing all this stuff, right? So, like, you and I have started to really do some good business together because we have the same DNA and we're like, let's get in there, let's get shit done and do a good job. I laugh because there's numerous times I will send an email on a Sunday, and you're one of the only people I know that will respond like that because we're both sitting at our laptops doing work on a Sunday. So
Yeah.
just a little overview of like some of the stuff that we're working on together. So let's go back before we talk about how to be successful and build a brand, build a good coaching business, and what some of the things our people need to understand about that. We have to go back in time and talk about how you built this multi-million dollar award winning company, because I'm seeing things on social where you're winning awards, you're voted, number one marketing agency in Iowa, and you've got really big customers. let's go back and let's talk about what it took to start and build this, because that's going to help people understand, at least from the business standpoint, really what it takes to build a business like this. Because before the show started, you don't really know a lot of people that are truly real multi-million dollar business owners. Like you just don't get to meet a lot of them. And this is real, down to earth, real. Like people are going to be able to get that from you. So let's go back to, you said 2011. Talk about starting that up, where you were at, and let's just get the conversation going from there.
Yeah, I kind of have a fun story that I love to tell because um, I was fired from a job. And I had been hired at this company to go out and sell and kind of do the ad agency thing. And, I kind of built a book of business and had clients and things like that. And they let me go, and I was crushed. I was like, what? Like, how could this is crazy. And so, literally within 24 hours, I had a couple of my clients call me and say, I didn't hire that company to do my marketing. I hired you. Can you just do this for me? And I'm like, I suppose. I had no idea what that meant, what it entailed. And so I borrowed $675 from my parents because I had nothing. I was at that point, I was like having to borrow gas money. We had two little kids and we were just living paycheck to paycheck. And I got fired from my job for really no reason. And they just said they couldn't afford me. Okay. So I said, yeah, I'll do your marketing for you. So I borrowed money from my parents, went to Best Buy, got a computer, and I had this childhood desk set up in my master bedroom. And I sat my computer down on that and I just went to work. And I did what I knew what I could do. And I started helping these customers and these clients I picked up where I left off with some of them and started helping them with marketing things. And just word of mouth, I don't want to even say this, but as a marketing company, I have never actually paid for any media. So it's kind of funny to say that. But word of mouth, all of the things, just doing really good, helping other companies grow their companies. I was able to then get, new clients and new relationships and all of that and help grow the business. So that's kind of how I started.
Okay, this is definitely gonna be my favorite episode we've ever done. So here we go. I'm about to start asking you all the questions, right? Because
Uh-oh.
there's such a parallel here. Lisa, I know you're probably thinking the same thing I am. There's probably this massive parallel here to coaching, building a coaching business and building a marketing agency, right? So Renee, when you were fired, I'm just curious what your DNA is like, because I don't know this about you. Was that a chip on your shoulder? Was it fuel? Was it just flat out survival? I've got two kids. I just have to make it work. Like your work DNA is next level, but I'm curious what fuels that. Did it give you a chip? Are you like, I'm gonna fucking show you? Or what was the driving? What makes you drive like that?
Yeah, it did. So I had a mentor at the time. May he rest in peace. He passed away a couple of years ago. But that day I called him. He was the first person I called. Well, I called my husband first, and I'm like, oh my God. But then I called Greg, and he's like, I think you need a Coke. And so we met at this cafe, and he bought me a soda. And he was like, you need to start your own business. You just need to do this. And so he kind of, gave me a little bit of that nudge that I needed. And he believed in me more than I believed in myself. And sometimes you need somebody in your corner that can help push you, right? Surround yourself with people who believe more in yourself than you do. And so I had so many people though who told me that this was a crazy idea. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, no, just go work for this company. And I had like five or six other companies like, no, just come work for us. You'll be fine. But I had this in the back of my mind that I'm like, no, like, I kind of want to see if I'm good at this, like to run my own business. And I also wanted to prove to those people who are like, no, it's a bad idea. Like, I got it. So don't tell me I can't do something because I'll show you.
I love that. I completely love it. Lisa, is there any questions you have before we move on to the next? That
No,
I'm thinking about you.
I was
Go
only
ahead.
just thinking, like, I can really understand why you have so much respect for Renee's company because I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of parallels also to obviously Fat Muscle and everything that you've done just from the scratch, building up and hard work, like really hard work. And the second thing that came to mind was also just the power of like referral and just simply doing a good job no matter what position you're in. Like whether you are in full-time employment, you never know what comes out of that. You left full-time employment and your clients there were so loyal to you that they were like encouraging you to start your own thing. And I think that's just a wonderful encouragement to, yeah, really put your best foot forward no matter what position you're in.
Yeah, I want to bring up something. I just typed it in the show notes because, anyone listening, you can go back, hit pause. All these show notes have everything that's listed out here. I put in here the power of the right mentor. So you brought something up, Renee. Sometimes it takes someone just giving you the confidence because they know that you can do it. Because a lot of times when people are taking a big risk, they haven't done it yet. So it's the uncertainty of it. How important is it to you to have the right mentor? Because to me, mine, Monty Pierce, was massive for me. Massive, massive. How important has that been for throughout your career to have the right people like that?
Monumental. You can ask them questions, they've done it before, and even if they haven't done it before, they know somebody else who has, and so they can get you at least a conversation with somebody else. I've had many mentors, and Greg was one of my very first mentors, and Terry has been another one. John, you have helped me grow my coaching business significantly, and so without your support and without, all of the previous mentors I've had, I don't know if I'd be where I am today.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people listening, they don't look at themselves as mentors if they're coaches, especially if they're starting on early. But you really are, because think about how many, if you have a first time client that's new and they drop 30 pounds, they didn't know how to do that and they hired you. You actually, in some way, become their mentor and you showed them, here's the way that you can do it, and you believe in them, right? So, like, we all kind of have that in us. Let's talk about some of the risks that you took. And it says here why we did scary shit. So that was a note from you. Let's talk about that.
Oh, I've done so much scary shit. But you have to take risks in business. And if you don't, I mean, where's the reward in that? So, gosh, I can think of a couple of really fun stories of just big risks that I took right off the bat. So, the first risk I took was moving from my home. I had, moved out of my master bedroom, little childhood desk. I had cleared out my dining room, and that was my office. Big risk hiring my first employee. They came to my house, sat right next to me every day. So hiring that employee, in fact, my first employee, I shared with someone else just because I'm like, I don't know if I could afford it. Plus, like, what's this HR thing? Like, I had to learn how to be a business owner. So then I grew into my dining room, and then had two desks, and I just kept growing. And then I need a bigger office because I kept hiring more employees and knowing when is the right time to hire those employees versus when, how to know when to scale your business and not. So then getting, a big office, at one point I had 10 employees. We can talk about, that story in a second, but I had 10 employees. I had to have a place for them to sit. And so I had this big office space. And of course, the overhead goes up when you have, all of the employees and the office space and the internet and the printing paper, all those things. So those are all scary things as the company grew. But other scary things was like, should I take on this client? Can we handle this business? Or should I fire this employee because they're not pulling their weight? Like all those things are so scary. And as a business owner, especially when you've never done it before. So that first time is like really, really scary. One story I love is going back to like, should I take on this client? So I had a company approach me to partner on an agency pitch to win this big client. And we pitched a lot together. And, in business, you win some and you lose a hell of a lot more than that. So our conversion rate wasn't like awesome, when we were responding to RFPs or requests for proposal. So I said, sure, I'll do this. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is too big of a client for me. Like, I don't have all the fancy agency stuff that this client's going to require. And, but my husband said to me at the time, he's like, hey, they wouldn't have asked you to partner on it if they didn't think you could do it. And I
I
said,
love that.
all right, fine. I guess I'll give it a try. So I said yes, knowing deep down inside we're not going to win it because our conversion rate to a client was probably like 10-15% at that point with all the pitches that we were doing. Well, we won. We won the business. And so I had to like get real good real fast. And I found out that it actually wasn't that hard. And I really did know what I was doing. And so I was just doubting myself. And so I was listening to that little voice in my head saying, you're not good enough. Like, you don't know what you're doing. But we won. And honestly, that one client changed my life. It really did. It changed the trajectory of my business, of the type of clients that I was able to handle in the future because I had this one client that I could say we worked on. I mean, it's a big name. And so like it really just changed the face of what we can do. And it gave me the confidence to be able to move forward on those next big pitches that we've ultimately ended up winning as well. So
Massive, massive parallel for our coaches listening. Going back to 2010, 2011, if you're listening, if you were a client of mine stepping on stage, I literally had no idea. I was scared shitless to peak Matt Holcomb in 2011. He was a legit athlete. He was that big name that came on board, and he saw the team atmosphere, right? Like he saw me going to shows, he saw me supporting my clients. I had no idea. I was scared I was going to mess it up and look like I couldn't do my job, right? So I had no idea how to peak him. He ended up winning his pro card. But my point is being scared in the beginning when you don't have the experience, embrace that because nothing teaches you except for going out there and trying. Like face that fear, but confidently step up and figure it out. Don't let your client know you don't know what's going on, but you're going to figure it out as you go. So then after 2011, I was so confident because I literally had like 40 clients come on board like in a few months, and I was drinking from a fire hose. But I learned because I just had so many different things to do. I think it's the same thing with what you're saying, right? Like you ended up getting all this new business, and every time you got a new client, you learned from them. And here we are, 14 years later, and you have a ton of experience and you can pretty much handle anybody. But I just wanted to point that out. Like that's common in the beginning. Like people are going to feel like that. And I think they run from it. I think successful people are the ones that push through it, and then you see other people that run from it. Would you agree with that, Renee?
I think that's awesome. I think so many people have paralysis by overanalysis. Like they
Yes.
feel like they have to have every single thing, like from start to finish, A to Z, like figured out before they get started. And really, all you need to know is how do I get to A to B? And then once you're at B, you're going to figure out how to get to C. And then you just keep going and you learn as you go. I tell my team all the time, like, hey, this is a new client we got. This is a new industry, this is a new whatever it might be, but we're going to build the plane as we fly it. We're going to build the plane as we fly it.
Yeah. Love
Easy
it.
for me to say. So you just start and you figure out what questions do I need to know. You ask the right people, you ask your mentor, you do your research, and you just figure it out as you go. And of course, you never let the client know that you're scared.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you've learned, you've become better, you've grown, and now you have that additional tool in your toolbox. So you don't have to have it all figured out before you start. You just have to start.
Yeah. And, Lisa, I'm thinking about you, right? Like you were a police officer in New Zealand, correct? And
Yes.
you have this life that you came from. Now you're a very successful coach, multiple podcasts. Like you can pretty much get people on your podcast like that, right? And very respected. Did you experience that when you first started?
Oh,
And
I
what was it like
absolutely,
for
yeah, I
you?
was totally scared too. And of course, I kind of going from quote unquote secure full-time employment to just like basically doing my own thing and working remotely. I did not tell my parents or so what I was doing until it was already decided because again, like you don't want to have more doubters in your ears that tell you all the things that could go wrong and you're just like, here's what's gonna happen, deal with it. But I really like the point that you raised, Renee, of like when is it time to grow? When is it time to expand the facilities, hire your next person? And I think that's a really tricky question. And there is no right and no wrong, but I do believe sort of like yeah, waiting until sometimes we have to take like an expansion or hire your next coach before the demand is even there. And other times it's, wait until you're basically at full capacity. I guess nowadays most people think I need to have the office before I even have a client, and that's the wrong approach in my opinion. But on the other side, sometimes if we build the facility, the clients are also going to come type of thing. So, for example, with you, John, you have now this huge warehouse and you're like, have since you built that, you have expanded so much already. Like, you did not wait until like, okay, we need to, build something because we have no more capacity. Or I don't know. I think it's just a really interesting question to ponder. Again, I don't believe there's a right or wrong that fits for everybody. But yeah, really, really tough one.
It makes me bring it. I want to ask another question. Speaking on that, so going back to when you're operating out of your house, right? Because you know how Fat Muscle started. I have love for that because we literally were shipping products out of our house for the first year and a half. Like we made it to like almost 1 million a year in sales out of a house, and a lot of people don't realize that they want to try and look successful before they are. But I was trying to run the company lean so we could make money, so that's what I want to ask you is what was that like working out of your house and when did you start to turn a profit? How long did that take?
I turned a profit from day one just
Wow.
because, yeah. Well, because I didn't undercharge. I think that's a big problem for a lot of people is, especially in the early years, you undercharge for the value of your service. And so you can't be afraid to do that. Charge what you're worth, not what you think you're worth. Even so, I turned a profit right away. But, working out of my house, it was hard to turn it off. I didn't really know like the DNA I had at that moment, because it's hard to turn it off anyway now. But it was hard to separate work from life because, my office was just right there. And so it was really easy to continue to go into the office, into my dining room or whatever. And so when I was able, like I said, I had two very small kids at the time, and I tried to do it when I first started my company. I tried to do it while they were still at home, and well, that didn't go very well. They ship them off to daycare. And so, then I had to decide like, yes, I need more people. We can't fit in my room and in my dining room anymore. There's not enough room in here. So we did have to expand. So Lisa, that, to your point, it was like we just ran out of capacity there for space. So we did have to do that. So,
How big was your first office and what was that like?
well, I don't know how big it was. I had the first one I rented,
Yeah, yeah.
it had like six offices in it, and then I did a little bit of renovation. I had this, you'll appreciate this, John. I know you've showed this on social media, but I had like big whiteboards, like that were my war boards, and all of brainstorming and everything all over it with whiteboard, with, erasable marker. So that was it had a big conference room. My dad built my conference table from his bare hands, 10 foot long. It's down in my basement right now because it's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, it was great. I got to paint the walls this bright fluorescent green, and it made it really, really fun. So it was great. I don't know how big it was, but I don't know, five or six office spaces.
That's exciting. And then something else that I wanted to ask you about is really kind of tuning out the noise, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they're either really starting to catch some traction or they're just starting, you
Mhm.
have people around you that they opt for security. They're like, well, why don't you get a regular job? Or hey, you could go work for this company and make 80,000 or 100,000 a year doing this. What about tuning out the noise on your end? Did you have to deal with that? And if you did, what's some of the, you know, the feedback that you could give people, because I know that as I've gotten older, I'm just old man grumpy Gorman, and I just don't give a shit because I'm old. But in the beginning, I had a lot of people that were like, "Well, you should do this, you should do that,"
Yeah.
and they weren't successful in the things I was trying to do. So, like, did you have any of that that you had to kind of wade through?
I did, but I was also married at the time. Or I mean, I'm still married. I was
Mhm.
married when I started my business, and Mike had insurance, so I didn't have to, rely on that. So we did have that. He was employed by the state, so like we had really good insurance for us and the kids, and so like I didn't have to go to work, and so that was a little safety net for us. And I could see if some, as a single mom and who has kids to raise, how that could be a really tough decision. Do you want to go out on your own and do something, or do you need the safety net of, a corporation with the insurance and all of that? And so, at least I had that to go off of, and I had that that didn't play into that decision. I could just go and build my business because we had that. We had that there.
Yeah. I know it's one of those things too. The more successful you get, I'd like to get your take on this. The more you keep people like that away, not because they're not good people, but because you don't need to deal with that. You've probably gotten to the point now though where you don't really even deal with that, correct? Or what's that like for you as far as people who are just noise, who are doubters, are saying, "Oh, you should do X, Y, and Z." I'm sure you've gotten to the point you don't have to deal with that, right? Or is that still
No,
there?
I don't have to really deal with that a whole lot from the agency's perspective. Now, from the coaching side, yeah, that's a little bit different. But from the agency work, I don't really have to deal with that much now.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. What are some of the failures and lessons, like some of the ones that really stand out that you would like to pass along?
Yeah, one is and have when you're growing a business, I grew really fast. And I think that there's a lot of people who can experience this too, where, and you just mentioned that too, John, where were successful with Matt and boom, you had 40 clients right away. You were drinking from a fire hose. I
Yeah.
kind of did the same thing with my agency, and I grew really, really fast. And I had to hire people to take on client workload, but I didn't have the systems in place to scale the company. I didn't know what I didn't know. We were building the plane as we flew it. And some of the parts didn't really fit. So, one of the biggest failures that I had was we grew really fast. I didn't have the systems in place to scale the business, also keep my sanity, and, working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, as well as I didn't say no to new clients as they were coming in. I'm like, oh yeah, we got staff. Like, let's just do it. And so I didn't have the systems in place. So what happened was, I got to a place with my business where I had to cut it down and I had to scale down, just because we were working with clients who really didn't fit our niche. We really didn't fit our expertise. Some clients just didn't fit our personalities, honestly, and they weren't taking advice from what we wanted to do with their companies. They weren't doing it. So we had some mismatches there. I had some mismatches with employees. So I downsized my company pretty quickly, went back to from that beautiful office, lime green, striped window, striped curtains. I mean, it was really pretty. I should have gone into interior design, but I went back home and I let everybody go. I feel heartless. However, best decision I ever made as a business owner because I got my life back. I got control of the company again. I got to work with the clients I enjoyed working with. I actually had some positive cash flow because I was able to get rid of clients that were sucking the life out of me and not paying. So I really just resized my business, got rid of my employees, went home, started from scratch again, started rebuilding those systems because then I knew what I needed to do to move forward. I knew, okay, I'm going to scale my business again, but I'm going to hit the restart button. And I know what I know. And so I was able to get those systems in place to scale my business appropriately. And now I have a team again. So that was a big, I don't say, well, at the time I thought it was a failure, but like it wasn't, because if I hadn't have done that, I might have gone out of business. I might have just lost my passion for the industry of marketing, but I didn't. I just scaled it back, started over, and now it's growing again. And we've been pretty successful the last 5, 10 years. So
Yeah.
That really resonates with me as well, and I'm sure with a lot of coaches, especially out there, because I think often, especially when you start off, you think growth always necessarily means expansion in the sense of hiring more people, also having more clients, which it doesn't always, of course, it depends on the industry, but I think a lot of coaches in particular after a while find themselves in a position where they're doing mostly the management sort of aspect of everybody and they're not doing any of the coaching anymore. And I, like myself too, was drifting into that direction for a while. I only had 3 employees, but nonetheless. And I was like, I'm not really coaching anymore. I miss coaching. This is the thing that I love doing. I love the one-on-one. And so then recognizing, okay, when you need to scale back and actually growth can also be like, hey, I have a few extra hours to myself, or hey, I'm doing more of the thing that I actually love doing, and that is worth the other quote unquote sacrifice, even though it might at first hurt the ego. I think that's a really great lesson. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know we're getting ready to start talking about how you built your coaching company and how it really parallels this. A couple more questions before we get to that. What are some of the big wins that really just changed the trajectory of business, life? Like, what are some of the ones that were just like needle movers for you?
Yeah, I mentioned getting that one client, that I was certain we wouldn't get.
Yeah,
So I went for it anyway, but we're still working with that client all these years later. And
love it.
so that was a big win. But also, I guess I feel like our team is validated because we've been voted best social media company in the last couple of years from a publication here in the Des Moines metro area. We've been noted as best web developer for a couple of years as well. And what I love about that is that we literally are just a super small team compared to some companies who that's all they do. Like, again, I stated at the beginning, like Trio Agency is a full service, anything from marketing, and we're more of a boutique style agency. Whereas there's companies out there that just solely, they just do social media, they just do web development. And so to be voted best social media company and best web developer just speaks to the expertise of my team and surrounding myself with greatness there. And so we've been able to kind of, put our stamp in that we know what we're doing, and we've gotten some awards. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty big win. I'm really proud of my team.
Yeah, let's talk about building your coaching business. Yours is very impressive because you and I are close. Like we talk a lot of business, behind the scenes, right? You're familiar with mine, I'm familiar with yours. We do a lot of stuff together. I watched yours go from, just a handful to really skyrocket really fast. And I remember telling you, this is growth like I saw back in 2010. I watched Jason Theobald blow up like this, and we had a major advantage. Social media was still somewhat new, so it was easy to organically grow and just put, before and afters out and just put out good content. Now it's way harder because everyone has that, right? And I knew social media wasn't going to be the big driver of your business, and it certainly hasn't been the biggest. There's other things we're going to talk about, but a lot of people I help grow their business, they still can't grow it like you did. So I definitely want to peel the curtain back on your end so you can tell people how you've done this. Um, the first bullet point you've got here that you want to talk about is believing in yourself, first of all, as a coach. So talk about that because here you are, this very, very successful entrepreneur, and you're getting ready to start a coaching business. Where's the believing in yourself fall within that?
That's a really tough question, and I regret putting that on the show notes because I'm like, oh shoot, now I've got to answer it. Well,
Well, and I think maybe it will resonate with people, right? Because a lot of people that are starting in the beginning, they don't, right?
mhm.
Whereas you do because you've built successful businesses. Like you're not 24-year-old Renee that doesn't have real world experience, right? So like what would you pass on to these coaches that are struggling with believing that they can do it where you've already done this just in another area?
Well, this kind of goes back to maybe what we've talked about with those doubters in there. You don't need permission to be great at something.
Yeah.
So you have to just start believing in yourself and believing in the knowledge that you have and the experience that you have. I started my coaching business organically because I was already living the lifestyle and had done this journey myself. And so just starting to help and hold people accountable, one person at a time, just kind of slowly snowballed. But that self-belief didn't just show up overnight that I was good at coaching. It was built through reps, built through those, you know, constant delivery of a little, little wins every time, with other people that I was helping hold accountable. So, yeah.
It's something, talking about setting up your brand, things like brand DNA and the cash value in that, or the monetary value in that. Let's
Mhm.
talk about walking around as your own billboard. I tell coaches all the time, when I do consulting, if they don't look like a walking billboard of what their clients are at least somewhat interested in, or they respect, right? Because not everyone wants to be a professional bodybuilder, right? That's your goal, Renee. Not everyone wants to be that, but they respect the drive. And a lot of people, they don't have a respectable physique built. How important has that been for you on your end as far as getting clients?
Very. My body's my business card.
Exactly.
And so, and my story, my before and my afters. And yeah, I mean, I'm just literally a mom with two kids. And like, if I can do it, so can you. And so, but, that really does put that, perspective. Like, I love going to the gym every day. I love eating healthy and, I live the lifestyle for sure. But if, like you said, like my body's my business card and I have to keep it up if I want to ensure that I continue to have a good coaching business. So.
How important is, and Lisa, this is for you as well. How important is storytelling where you show your current journey? Because Lisa, I think of the last couple posts that I've seen from you. You've had some good before and after pictures, or you've posted up, hey, here's some myths. And you're literally walking around the leanest I've ever seen you, and it's in a good, healthy, lean condition, the best you've ever looked, and you're maintaining that. You're eating a ton of food, but you're showing this, right? And you're telling the story and you're helping people. Renee, the same thing with you. Like, how important has been showing your journey as far as building your brand for both of you? I want to ask that question.
Yeah, and like Renee said, I think it's crucial because people are looking for that relatability, that like, okay, where did that person come from? Or otherwise they automatically come up with excuses in their head of like, oh no, she's, special, or she's always been like that and it's easy for you. And you're like, no, no, no. It's not any easier for me than it is for you. Like, okay, sure, we all have different genetics, etc., but in the end, we all put one foot in front of the other, keep working hard, bring it back down to consistency, whether that is in business or with our bodies. And I think, yeah, that's what people want to see. They want to be able to relate to you, whether it's consciously or subconsciously.
I agree with everything you said. I
Yeah,
don't have anything to add.
yeah, it's something where I think a lot of people don't realize, like, you are your brand. Like, you're walking around like all the time, 24/7. Like, if you're trying to build something, you are the brand. And I don't think people realize just how crucial that is. Like, it's organically already set in place. Let's talk about setting up your brand and brand DNA, and then the value in that, Renee. What do you want to talk about there?
Yeah, well, you've got to know who you are. You have to have your non-negotiable difference between who you are versus other coaches out there. If we're talking about building a coaching business, so
Yeah.
you've got to have your unique selling proposition. So, and then, what do you want to be known for? Who do you want to serve? What transformations do you want to help create? Is it, in the bodybuilding world? Is it in the functional health world? Like, what transformations do you want to create? And then, how do you want to portray that information to people? What's your brand voice? Do you want to be fun and loud and, cheerful all the time? Or do you want to be a little bit more serious or educational tone? Like, what type of tone does fit your personality the most so that when people run across your brand, whether it's on your website, whether it's on social media, whether it's in person, they know what to expect when they get on that, consultation call with you, that, you portray exactly what you envision people, wanting to to experience you as. So you have to kind of figure that stuff out. Who do you want to be and what's your difference between other coaches?
I, I think that's a great point. In this day and age, there are so many coaches, and there have been for the last 10 years. Like we're so inundated with so many coaches. And a
Mhm.
lot of people, they complain and like, well, how am I supposed to grow a business? Like everyone's doing it. I think it's actually the perfect opportunity because all you have to do is fucking be different. And that's the thing. Everyone looks the same. Everybody posts the same before and after picture of somebody that's dropped 10 pounds and they're barely down a pant size. Like those are good. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing memorable about those, right? And it's the same thing about people's brands. Like people don't build a memorable brand. They don't stand out at all. They're just kind of meh. They're kind of vanilla and cookie cutter. And I think people need to take everything you just said to heart and create your specific brand. Who are you and how's that stand out? And it's an advantage because all you literally have to do is start to stand out and get good people results. So you've got logo and identity. This is kind of nerdy because I'm definitely not an expert here. I love logos. I love building stuff, but I'm not good at it. This is your expertise. Someone like Leslie is very good at that. So talk about logos and identity.
Well, I think people misunderstand the word brand and they think logo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a logo is not your brand. A brand is who you are. It is your DNA. It is your voice. It is your unique selling proposition. It is your heart of your company. A logo is just your badge.
Yeah.
And your logo needs to be clean and memorable, like you mentioned, John. It needs to be versatile because we have so many places that we can use it now, right? In social and on website, on t-shirts, on labels for supplements, all the ways that you can use it. So it needs to be versatile, but it also needs to communicate who you are based on your brand DNA at a glance. You have like zero point 0.2 seconds to get somebody's attention with your badge, which with your logo. But so many people overthink it or they don't and they throw it into chat GPT. Don't do that. I mean, it gives you ideas, um, but don't overthink it. But you do need to do it right the first time because once you start putting that out there and you start using that brand, you start to create brand equity. People are going to start relating you to the badge because there's some type of emotional connection to the fonts and colors and icons that you use within that aesthetic of the logo. And so if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to spend time redoing it, maybe 3, 4, 5 years later, and you're going to lose that brand equity that you've built in that identity. So I just wanted to kind of make that point. Like a brand is not your logo. It is the heart of your company. And I think a lot of coaches just need to figure out the mushy stuff so that they understand like who they are as a person because that's going to come through in their marketing and in their proposal in their promotion of their company more so than their logo.
Yeah, I just thought of another question. I've known multiple coaches over the years who wanted to quote unquote rebrand.
Mhm.
And it's not something I'm an expert in because I've not rebranded anything. I've just expanded and adding this or that, but all my stuff stayed the same basically since 2010 or 2016 for Fat Muscle. And I've
Mhm.
seen coaches, especially when I had the gyms, right? Because I had a lot of coaches that worked there over the years and they would change their company and they said they wanted to rebrand because they wanted to try and stir up and get new business. And I was thinking, if you're not getting business with the way your company is now, rebranding is not going to change anything. So my question for you, Renee, is when is it time to rebrand? And I'm going to learn something here because I don't know anything about this. You help companies do it.
Mhm.
What is rebranding and when is that important? Because we might have some coaches now that they may be ready for this.
Yeah, I've helped a lot of companies rebrand. I've also helped some coaches rebrand. I would say it's time to rebrand when you realize that the logo that is your badge doesn't really speak to who you are as a company anymore. It
Yeah.
might have when you first started your company, but you've evolved as we all should. Whether it's you've added more services, whether you have new business partners, whether you changed your niche and you maybe got, say, functional certified and you want to go the functional route versus physique enhancement. I don't know. Like, so once you realize, like, oh, that brand or that logo, use my own language here, that logo doesn't really speak to who I am anymore. that's really the only time you should consider rebranding. Um, and getting a new logo. Otherwise, if it still speaks true to who you are as a company, but yet maybe you're not growing as fast, it's not your logo's fault, it's your fault. So like get down to
Yeah.
the base, the root cause of the problem of why you're not growing. And I can tell you it's not your logo.
Yeah. No, I love it. I just learned something there. I think Jason Theobald, when he started to switch over to like Scooby Doo and things like that and start to build out his education, like that was a very good polished look. And I think that was a really good move there. So I think that's a perfect example. Websites and social media. A
Mhm.
lot of people don't think there's value in websites now because a lot of people don't go to websites. I think there's value in it, but you're the expert. What say you? Do coaches need to have their own website?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of biased because I build them for a living. So, yes, everyone needs a website. It needs to be beautiful, and you need to hire me to do it. Just kidding. Um, your website's your storefront. You cannot say everything that you do, all your services and your prices and all that stuff. You just can't say that like on social media. You have to have a place for people to go. In fact, if you want to do promotional marketing in any like larger form, you've got to have some place for people to go as a landing page. And sometimes, most of the time, you're unable to use a social media handle to do that. So you've got to have some place to send people for more information. So your website's basically your storefront. That's where you can also share a ton of pictures. You can create that culture of your team, whether it's your clients or your staff, whatever it might be. You can dive deeper into educational content and blogs and resources and all of that stuff that you can put on that one hub that someone can go and they can learn all about you in one place. So that's your storefront. But social media, that's your handshake. That's your first impression round. When you go on stage, if you're a bodybuilder and you go on stage, that first impression round, like the judges know whether or not you're a winner.
Yeah.
Same thing with social media. That's your first impression round. That's your handshake. That's going to get people to want to know more, to go to your website to finish their, research about you. So, yes, everybody needs a website.
Yeah, I just messaged a really successful person in our space who's doing what I do at about 100 times the scale. Very, very well-known name. He's got a weekend coming up where only 15 of us can attend. I've learned a lot from him. He's everything that I want to be, and he's doing it right. And I went through and made sure that any links that I had to my websites were legit because I sent him a question. I'd like to get him on the podcast, which, I'm pretty sure we can get him on the podcast. I just don't want to say who it is just yet. My point is, I made sure everything was polished. My Team Gorman website, it sucks. I don't think I've updated that hardly at all because I stay full of clients and I've just been lazy, right? I need to do better at that. But I went through and it was important that I had websites. The Synergy Labs website is up to date. Fat Muscle obviously is up to date. Premier U, thank you, Renee. Our Premier U website that you built for us for the clinic is up to date. Our supplements are up there. That kind of stuff's important. But I also went to my social and I make sure it looked good. And what's the first impression this guy's going to get whenever he goes to see my social media, right? It's like all those things were important and polished, and that way he can get the right snapshot of who I am. But I didn't really have to change much. How important is that? I think a lot of people, they're not putting out who they really are. They're trying to put out what they want people to think. I think it's
Mhm.
important to be extremely organic on that. What are your thoughts there?
100%. People are smart and they will sniff out the bullshit. So
Yeah.
you've got to be real, authentic, and you've got to put your personality into the social media page, into your website. And the fact that you didn't have to update much says a lot about how much you care throughout the year versus like, oh, I got to send this link to somebody. Like you constantly are working on it. You're constantly putting forth like the effort to keep it updated, and that's really important. But the other thing too is like, John, if you go back to your social media accounts, you know exactly who you are, and same with you, Lisa. You go through and all of your posts are consistent. They have the same tone of voice, they have the same end goal of whether it's education or celebration or, rarely do you guys have like an offer where it's like a call to action, but there's clear path to what you want that and the end user to do with your posts. And so that just, that consistency in posting is really important and strong, and why both of your social media pages are just blowing up. So
Well, thank you. I do want to talk about that and creating a business, but real quick, winning mindset and resilience. Like here's something to where I gravitate towards people like you that have this, right? Like we all have that work ethic here in this room. Talk about why that's important, because I think that's a missing component. I know a lot of people with massive potential that get outworked by people like us. Talk about winning mindset and resilience.
well, I think every entrepreneur hits walls. We all just get to that point where we're like, whew, like how am I going to get past this hurdle in our business, in our life, whatever it is. But the winners keep showing up. They just keep going and figure out, okay, well, what's the next step I need to take? They, like I said before, like you might not know the end journey, but you know the next step you need to take to keep moving forward. And so, I think winners have to continue to build yourself up over time and have that winning mindset that, even though I'm going to hit these walls, like I'm just going to keep persevering. You might get injured in the gym. If you're a bodybuilder and you're getting ready for a stage, you might get injured. Well, you're not going to stop, right? You're going to keep smartly training to move past that and to heal. So, I think you should treat any business like you would building a physique, like progressive overload. Just keep doing the boring, consistent things over and over and over and over again, and getting better and better every time you do them. And that consistency is going to compound, and it's going to give you that positive belief in yourself, so that when you do hit those hurdles, you can then just quickly pivot, and okay, like that resilience builds as you go, and like that's going to keep giving you that winning mindset of like, okay, yeah, I've hit this wall and now I can keep going because I've done it before, or I've hit this hurdle before. I survived. Let's, try something new. So
Yeah, and what you learned from it, because every successful person that you meet, they literally run into really hard situations. That's the point. That's how they become successful.
mhm.
Renee, I told you when you were here this last weekend, we're not going to say the story here on the show, but I told you about this massive one that I had, massive, massive, and how it was a really hard kick right in the junk here the last couple weeks. And I told you about it, and it will never leave, our conversation. But the point is, I learned so much. It made us so much better. It might have cost a lot of money, but wow, what did I learn from it? And that's going to serve me over the next 10 years. And that's just that winning mindset that you talked about. Like that's all successful people do that. And you see the average people that don't, like they don't have that in them. So let's hit these last, because I know we're starting to go long here. Social media and being successful, I put in here the truth. So your business has grown rapidly. People would kill to have the client base that you have. When you and I were talking about this, we talked about it's the same thing with Trio Agency, right? You built your business through referrals immediately right out. I mean, your business started because you did such a good job. Like that was almost like a referral. Those people that just came to you and said, "Hey, we just want to hire you." How massive have referrals been to growing your business over social media? What would you ratio would you give it?
Oh, I'm gonna say only about 15% of my current clientele or even past clientele have come from social media, where I didn't know where they came from other than maybe like a forum or something that I answered a
Sure.
question or something like that. So I would, 15%. Otherwise, it was somebody I knew from high school, or, it was a family member. Gosh, in the early days, like it was, helping family out, and or it was a friend, and then the friend of a friend, and then the coworker of the friend, and then the friend's friend who watches them on social, but they don't talk anymore, but they see their transformation. So it's kind of like I can really like see where the spider web goes for some of those people and those referrals, but it might not have been like, oh, hey, so and so, you need to hire Renee as your coach because she did this for me. It might have been they just saw, success on their page or their transformation photo, and they knew them or whatever, and then they contact me that way. But it's, 85% of my business is from, word of mouth.
Yeah, and I've said this numerous times, so I want to get your take on this. I've told people if you treat your current clients, if you have four clients right now, if you treat them like they are the most important, which they are the most important people you have, because this is all you have right now, if you treat them to the point to where like if they left, like you would die. Like I know that's morbid, but if you treat them so good, but you keep that standard as you grow, your business has nowhere to go but up. Because I remember we had a trainer in the gym and he had a lot of people that he trained over the course of years. None of them ever got results, but they had community and they had this guy that they loved to train with, and it was all word of mouth. It wasn't results driven, it was all word of mouth. So even just treating people good, um, I know that has to play into both companies for you, right? When it comes to word of mouth, is how well and how hard you work for your clients.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, your reputation is everything. So, yeah, definitely plays into both.
Let's talk about organic versus paid marketing as far as like on the coaching side. This is something I don't know anything about because I paid for a little bit of marketing with Fat Muscle to test it out in like 2022, got burnt, quickly got out of that, have not done anything since. What do coaches need to know about organic versus paid marketing or boosting posts or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, organic marketing or organic social, we'll just talk about social. So, that's going to build trust. That's going to build your community. That's going to create those loyal buyers. That's going to create your cult following, right? It's a very slow, painless process or painful process, to grow your following organically, but it's the sustainable way. If you look at my social media following, I don't have very many followers. I think I'm probably like 1,400, followers on Instagram right now, maybe 2,500 on Facebook. So like I really don't have a large following, but they're quality followers, and
Right.
I'm influential within that small community of followers. If I go through my follower base, like I know a lot of them, and so it really doesn't matter like how large it is, like how influential are you within that community that you are cultivating on your social, because that's where your trust in your community builds, and then how do you know when you're ready for paid? If you have content that maybe went viral, or you're like, whoa, look, this got like 55,000 views, like that's crazy. Like that's something, if you know and you can scale something that you know works, then you can put a little bit of money behind it. And that's really good for coaches who might have a lot of proof that a lot of really good transformation photos, they have a really strong offer, or maybe they have like a team of coaches underneath them and they have really good systems in place. Like that's when you should put money behind it. But
Right.
otherwise, that paid exposure or paid exposes your brand, and organic builds your brand. So think of it that way. So, that organic builds that trust, it builds your brand, but then the paid just really exposes it to more people.
Yeah, I can think of an example of maybe paid marketing at the time might be this podcast, right? Like this is all organic. We've built it organically. If we wanted to really get this out, we've got the content, we've got the guests. We would hire Trio, which we have talked about, and say, "Hey, let's really get this out. Like let's get this out to a lot of people." I think that's time. Um, and finally, let's talk about what's trending, what every coach should start doing right now. Maybe AI is a good segue to talk a little bit about that because that's misunderstood. So what are your thoughts on kind of what's trending as far as like the marketing and the advertising agency or even just tech? Like what are you up on right now?
AI is a wonderful tool. I mean, we shouldn't ignore the fact that AI is there. It is going to help you become more efficient in your processes. It's going to help give you ideas that you might never have had before that could help catapult your brand. If it is, if you prompt the right things and and AI gets to know you, I mean, it could be instrumental to help you become, bigger in what you want to do, and have your little personal assistant there. So definitely don't ignore AI and don't be afraid of it either. But other things that's trending, real authentic storytelling. We were talking about that earlier. That polished content is just out.
Yeah.
People sniff through it and they can see like, oh, that was just really scripted. So that authentic storytelling is what's trending right now. Educational content. People are hungry for content. They want to learn, they want to read, they want to listen. And so it's a really good place to show, and tell what's your why, and how you can help people. So that education forward content is really trending. Um, from an execution standpoint, short form video gets really good engagement on social media. So if you can do even imperfect it doesn't need to be polished. It just needs to get out there. But that short form video is really is full of engagement right now. Community building, like Facebook groups, text lists, newsletters, like all of that stuff is because it's educational and content, like that is kind of trending. So if you've got a nice client base, try to build that community, whether it is creating a private Facebook group or sending out those newsletters. But I think one of the big things, and if I can go back to talking about the agency life and correlating it back into coaching, like you have to build those back end systems first before you start chasing followers, before you start building the business. Like build your system first. You might not know what you need to build, but like just start thinking about like if I were to scale today, does this system work? And can it be efficient if I have 25 more clients, if I have 45 more clients, what systems can you start to put in place today that can carry you through?
Yeah. I want to bring up one quick thing about AI because I get asked about this all the time. Um, a lot of people that don't embrace change, they get left behind. I remember in 2010, there's a shit ton of us in the coaching world that were showing people you could eat something besides rice and chicken and stuff like that and get shredded and get on stage. A lot of the coaches back then, it was change and they barked against it and they're like, nope, you can't do that. It's a fad. Well, 10 years later, most of them were out of business because no one wanted to hire those people because they were tired of eating chicken and rice for 6 meals a day, right? Now we see what flexible dieting is. We see a healthier way to do it. My point is, change is always going to be here. I
Mhm.
preach be early, understand it. So AI is something that I actually use, and people think of it as cheating. It's not. It's your personal assistant. And let me tell people where I've used it, and I've helped clients use it. I've had a couple clients that are like, "Hey, can you help me put my diet together?" I'm like, "Yeah, put it together and send it over. I'll take a look at it." Finally, I'm just like, "Hey, take your macros, take the types of foods that you like to eat and you prompt, which is you tell chat gpt, for example, you'd be like, hey, I need you to put together a diet that is 5 meals a day, 150 protein, 150 carbs, 50 fats, using these foods, and name the foods and divide that evenly into 6 meals or 5 meals, and it will literally spit that out. And you can, the more specific you are, you're like, I need this measured out using grams, not cups and spoons and stuff like that. And then you refine it and you look at it and you're like, hey, I want to switch out rice for potatoes or cereal or whatever. It teaches you how to do it, right? But you don't want to rely on it to where you don't learn. And that, to me, it becomes your assistant. I've had it write a sublease for me. Actually, I'm not going to go try and I'm not going to pay somebody to write me a sublease, and I'm not going to try and do it myself. I had a sublease written in 10 seconds and I went through, changed a few things, and it was done, right? Because it's my assistant. So there are smart ways to use it, but we'll spend more time talking about AI sometime in the future. Renee, I know we've went a little long and I could keep going. Lisa, do you have any other questions for Renee?
No, I'm just really thankful for your time, Renee. This has been, yeah, very educational for me as well and very relatable. So thank you.
Oh, it was great. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, I will vouch for Renee, whether you want to hire her as a coach or you want to hire her to do your marketing and advertising, like that. Like, I can't put a bigger stamp of approval on someone, and I will personally do that. And you can find out all of her information in the show notes. We got her social, her email, her website, all that stuff. Just hit pause and check that out. And then, if you guys don't mind, if this has brought you value, please just give us a review real quick. I think we're sitting somewhere in the 50s with 55-star reviews. That's awesome. We need more of those because it lets other guests vet us and see that, hey, this is a legit podcast. So please put your stamp of approval on this. So, Renee, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. I know we're going to talk a ton off and on because that's just what we do. And we'll have you back on to talk about more stuff. Maybe we'll talk about menopause next time since that's what we just got done doing here this last weekend.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah. All right, you guys have a great weekend. For myself, Renee, and Lisa, we're out of here. See y'all.